Welcome to the Mom Owned and Operated podcast, the podcast about moms and for moms, where we have candid conversations about running a business, raising a family, and remembering ourselves. I'm your host, Rita Suzanne, a single mom of four, digital strategist, and provider of no-nonsense business strategies and tactics. Hi, this is Mom Owned and Operated. I am Rita Suzanne, and today I have my guest Angela with me. Angela, please tell everyone all about you, your business, and your family.
Hi, I'm Angela. I'm the Christian sexpert. I talk all about sex and intimacy, primarily in Christian marriage, but you don't have to be a Christian to follow me. In fact, about half of my followers would claim no particular faith at all, but they all tell me that this is the sex ed they wish they would have gotten. I have been married for over 20 years. We have one 9-year-old son with some extra needs that I also homeschool, on top of being a sex and intimacy coach and influencer and public speaker.
I love it. I love it. I always feel like anybody who homeschools on top of running a business is just like so amazing because it's so much work. And as we all learned from being home with our kids during COVID, like it's so crazy. So how do you manage doing all of those things, especially, with a son that has some extra requirements?
It's, I don't know. When I started my business, it was kind of on a whim.
Mhm.
And as I have scaled it, I've always prioritized, my family, and I've made sure that the business fits around, the stuff that I have going with my family. My husband is a truck driver. He's home most nights, but he's actually, as we're recording this, his truck broke down in another state yesterday, and we don't know when he's going to be home.
Oh, no.
It could be today, it could be next week. Who knows? But because his job, he'll randomly be home on like a Tuesday. He won't have a load. And so that's great because depending on what I've got going on for the business, either, we're going to take off and we're going to have a family day at the zoo, or because, with homeschooling, we have that flexibility. Or if I have meetings scheduled for that day that he's off, he can take my son out of the house. They can go on an adventure, and I can have all kinds of quiet, focused time to do administrative stuff on my website or whatever. I do a
Nice.
lot of work after my son goes to bed at night. My husband goes to bed early because of his job. A lot of times he has to get up at 1 and 2 in the morning. So I do a lot of working on my business from like 9:30 to 1 o'clock in the morning.
Mm. I feel like a lot of moms do that. They do the juggle during the day and then they hustle on their businesses at night. And, it's just so sometimes can just be so overwhelming but we just make it happen because we want to make our businesses work. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of, I have found, so I also have ADHD. And I've kind of found it's just kind of pushing from one dopamine hit to another. So I really struggle with the like more mundane things like working on my website.
mhm.
But if I have a big dopamine push of like a video popping off on my socials, I try and really funnel that dopamine into doing the mundane things that I've been procrastinating. So really figuring out that pattern was helpful.
Yes, definitely. So what inspired you to even start your business, especially because it's a little bit controversial?
It's a lot controversial. Come on. Sex and Christianity, it's a lot
Right.
controversial.
Yes.
And that's why I started it, was because I saw the damage that purity culture did to women and to marriages. And I see the damage that certain teachings within the church are still doing. The obligation sex message, the orgasm gap. And I knew that, my faith tells me God has better for us. God wants us to enjoy sex. God wants us to be having good sex. And it was really like, there is better. And I want to help women and men as well have better marriages, better sex.
Yeah, because I know some women who've been married for a long time who just quite honestly, they don't even orgasm with their husband anymore, or if have ever. And it's a very one-sided relationship.
There is a massive orgasm gap in this country. So let me pull up my statistics so I'm talking about them correctly. So we've got 95% of men orgasm during a sexual encounter with their wives versus 49% of women will orgasm during a sexual encounter with their husbands. And
Mm,
that doesn't make any sense to me because we are the multi-orgasmic creatures. Men orgasm once and then they need hours to recover, but we can go again and again and again. There should be no orgasm gap because it should be a 5-to-1 women to men ratio.
yeah. And what do you think is causing the gap um, in those situations?
There's a lot of reasons. So we know that research shows us that evangelical women have a almost twice the rate of sexual dysfunction than non-evangelical women, or put it another way, women who grew up in purity culture will experience sexual dysfunction at almost twice the rate as someone who did not. So sexual dysfunction for women could look like things like vaginismus. Vaginismus is a condition where if anything tries to enter the vaginal canal, it involuntarily spasms and closes up and makes it incredibly painful. There are some women who cannot even use tampons because of vaginismus. So that's one of the leading problems with the orgasm gap. Other things include religious trauma, things like you were taught, well, men is just for sex. Women don't really need to enjoy it. I even saw that there was a Christian sex therapist this week who said women don't really need to orgasm.
Hmm.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? In the year of our Lord on Beyonce's internet 2024, a sex therapist is saying women do not need to orgasm. No, that is
Right.
no. We and then that's a whole other that I can go for hours on that one, reel it in. Um, there's also things like a lack of education. A lot of my coaching calls, I get on with my client and I say, okay, do you know how to orgasm? And they're like, well, I'm like, okay, do you know where your clit is? And they're like,
Mhm.
well, and I have to bring out my model, Volvina Von Trapp, and teach this 34-year-old woman where her clit is. Right.
Wow.
And so, but there's a lack of education. So if she doesn't know, her husband certainly isn't going to know. And
Mhm.
there's things like the average man takes about 5.4 minutes in order to orgasm. On average, about 80% or more of women need 14 to 20 minutes of direct clitoral stimulation in order to orgasm. You are not going to get that 14 to 20 minutes of direct clitoral stimulation from the missionary position, which is the go-to position for most couples. And so now the couple thinks that she's broken
Mm.
because 5 minutes of poking does not get her there. Right.
Right.
And she's not the problem.
Mhm.
Neither one of you are providing her the stimulation that she needs in order to orgasm. So there's a lot of factors that can lead into the orgasm gap. Lack of education is one of the biggest.
Right. I think, and then I think that creates a disconnect between the couples, right? And then neither one are really putting forth the effort in order to make
Right.
anything happen.
Well, and then she's coming to me and saying, well, I just have a low libido. What kind of herbs can I take? And I'm like, babe, why would you be interested in having sex if you're not orgasming? Why
Right.
should you want to have sex if you're not orgasming? And, then we get into the obligation sex messaging. Well, my
Mm.
husband really needs it. Does he though? Is he
Mhm.
going to explode if he goes for a week without an orgasm? And that pressure of the obligation is going to further suppress any libido that exists within her body.
Well, she
And
doesn't want him to cheat on her, so then she feels obligated to do it
right,
because of that more so than is he going to, right, like,
right,
explode.
exactly.
Mhm.
Because, like the first thing that people say is if they find out that he's cheating or he's using pornography is, well, are you giving him enough sex? No, that has nothing to do with it.
Right,
Bad men of bad character are the ones who cheat. The rate
right.
of orgasm has no effect on cheating. If you look at the studies,
Yeah,
it's bad
it's
character.
moral, right? It's your morals are definitely messed up.
Yes.
I know, because my second husband, we got divorced because he cheated on me. So
Ugh, I am so sorry.
yeah, that was horrible. But yeah, it was the same thing, and there was a disconnect in our sex life too, because he was extremely selfish, did not care about anybody but himself. And I think that goes in line with a lot of men as well.
Yeah. So my one of the pillars of my business is healthy women in safe marriages do not turn down good sex for no reason. And
Hmm.
so if a couple is having a sexual disconnect, I want to look at that phrase and see where the disconnect is happening. Healthy women. So is there some sort of depression, anxiety, purity culture trauma? Is there some sort of hormonal imbalance? Is she pregnant, nursing, postpartum? All of those things in safe marriages. So do you feel safe with your husband? Is he, do you sense that he is using sex to prop up his ego? Is he using sex to achieve intimacy rather than engaging in the intimacy that is necessary for good sex, right? So we know that sex is supposed to be the celebration of intimacy that you've already established before you've ever reached the bedroom. Whereas a lot of men have been raised and socialized that, real men don't have feelings, real men, don't cry, whatever. And it takes an intense level of vulnerability to experience real, true emotional intimacy. And that is terrifying to a man who has not been raised and socialized to understand that. And so they use sex as a way to feel connected rather than doing the work that is required to feel connected so that they can have sex and have the real intimacy that comes from truly vulnerable intimacy sex, right? And then going back to healthy women, safe marriages, don't turn down good sex for no reason. Is he good in bed? Are you orgasming? Or is he just really selfish? Does
Yeah,
he care about your pleasure and your orgasm? Right?
yeah.
So you can pin almost any sort of sexual disconnect to one of those issues in that phrase.
Hmm. So if someone is in a marriage like that and they're having some issues, what do you recommend to them? What would you say to them?
Get into therapy or coaching with someone like me who does sex coaching to help you identify where the breakdown is happening and make a plan to remedy that breakdown. So
Mhm.
I have excuse me, I have a holistic health practitioner. So if I talk to you and I don't think like we established that the marriage is healthy, you are safe within the marriage. And I'm like, well, I really think that this could be hormones. I have a holistic health practitioner that I will refer you to check your hormones, right?
Mhm.
If it's you guys are not establishing intimacy before you ever reach the bedroom. I help you make a plan to intentionally work on the non sexual intimacies so that sex becomes the natural overflow of the other intimacies, because there's actually 12 different types of intimacy we can experience in marriage, and sex is the one of those that is the overflow of when all the other ones are created and experienced. So I help couples make that plan to identify where the breakdown is happening and remedy it.
Mhm. It's so interesting to me because I was just thinking, well, I don't even understand why this is even controversial at all. Like you're having sex with your partner, like this is your spouse. Why is this even even controversial or taboo? Or why are you getting like these haters or any issues at all? I don't understand that. Because
Because
you're advocating for women to actually speak up for themselves?
yes, because I challenge, especially in the evangelical church, there is this messaging about, the Bible says, do not deprive. You cannot deprive your husband. Men need sex every 3 days. God created men to need sex every 3 days. And those verses are being taken out of context and weaponized against women. And
Mhm.
when I teach about the actual historical and cultural context of those verses and challenge what has been taught for years and years within the church, men suddenly think, well, if she's allowed to say no to me, I will never have sex again. Because
Mm,
there's this narrative, both within the church and within the larger American culture, that women just don't like sex. And that's not true. Women are just not allowed to express our sexuality in the same way that men are. Men are expected to be this virile sexual being, and his ego rests on his sexual accomplishments. Women are supposed to be these virginal, not interested in sex at all until you get married. And then once you're married, you're supposed to be the sex goddess, fulfilling his every whim, totally dedicated to his sexuality. And so our sexuality is silenced from the time that we're teenagers, right?
mhm,
Especially in the evangelical church, 12-year-old girls are told to cover up their shoulders lest a grown man lust after them. So
mm,
our sexualities have been silenced from the time that we're teenagers and just revolve around male sexuality. And my messaging threatens that status quo
yeah.
because these men have created the system where women are obligated to have sex with them. And they think if she has a choice, she won't want to have sex with me. So I
Mm.
have to make sure that she's still obligated to have sex with me so I can continue to have the sex that I want.
I mean, yeah, it's really sad that, making them step up and actually treat their partner like an equal and care about the partner's satisfaction is really like threatens them and their manhood so much.
It's and you can tell in my comments when a man is not a bad man, he just was never taught any better and he's trying
Mhm,
to learn and do better, versus the truly selfish men who don't want to have to put in the work of real vulnerable intimacy to build a safe relationship with their wife. And they are
mm.
just in it for their own orgasm and not having to do any work or emotional labor. You can tell the difference.
That's really sad. Okay, so one thing that I like to talk about or I want to talk about is we're going to veer just slightly away from like the actual aspects of your business and talk more about the day-to-day operations. What are some of the things that you use in your business that are helping you kind of manage everything? Like, do you have a favorite project management system? Like, what are you using?
So, one of the big things that I talk about when I talk about the business of my business is I'm a content creator. I started as a content creator. I'm an influencer, public speaker. And when I first started, I did not have a way of kind of indexing my content, right? Because I get the same questions over and over and over. And it's great for me to make new videos all the time answering those same questions, but
Mhm.
sometimes I am in a chat with a client and I just want to be able to send her a video where I've explained this thing 750 times,
Content,
right?
right.
And
Mhm.
I would be like, "Oh, I just posted a video about this 2 weeks ago and now I have to like scroll my content and figure out where it is." So I started using Microsoft OneNote as a way to create a content index for myself. So on the left side of the screen is my sort of meta topics. So
Mhm.
I will have topics like I have it up on my other screen here. So just reading through them, I've got things about like oral sex, orgasms, the orgasm gap, ovulation hormones, parenting, um, bringing novelty into the bedroom, breaking down specific verses, like where I talk about like oral sex is referenced in the Bible, the verse about do not deprive, right? And so under those meta concepts, I have the smaller concepts that would be within it. So like I have one that's for books. And so every time I talk about a marriage book or the book like She Comes First, that's in my like smaller concepts. And then I
Yeah.
drop the links to my videos under those other concepts with the date that I posted it. So if
Mhm.
a client asks me, "Hey, what do you think about the book She Comes First?" I just have to go into my index, go into the books She Comes First, and pull a link so I can send them the link and they can watch it. And I don't have to answer the question again. And the other thing that this does for me is I post videos 3 times a day.
Mhm.
And a lot of times I will, because my niche is sex and intimacy, I don't record content when my son is in my house. My
Mhm.
husband takes our son out of the house, so he does not overhear anything I'm talking about,
Right.
which means I have to record all of my content for the week once a week. So on Saturday or Sunday, I'm recording at least 21 videos. Right.
Mm.
And so I might record a like trending music something with no idea how I'm going to use it. So after I record it, over the next couple of days, I'm going to sit down with my index and I'm going to scroll through that for inspiration for that trending sound. And then I'm going to add my text so I can post it.
Right. I love that. I absolutely love that. That is so smart because then you can share it. And back in the day, back in the olden days, everybody used to say, all the coaches would say, make a blog post and share the blog post. But now that everybody's making content based on their specialty, it's share your content so that you can answer all of the questions for the client or the prospect or whomever. And I think that way of keeping it organized is structured is brilliant, and it helps you save time and keeps things organized for you in multiple ways. So I love that you shared that. Next thing is, what are you listening to or reading right now? This could be personal or business or both.
I am so I do mostly audiobooks because the ADHD is strong. So I am listening to Power Moves by Sarah Jakes Roberts because I will be speaking at her conference come September. She does a women's conference every fall, Women Evolve in Texas. It's this year, 50,000 women will be in attendance, and I am speaking at the conference. And so, aside from just loving her as an author and speaker, I was like, I should be familiar with her work. So, I am listening to Power Moves, and it has I highly recommend everybody listen to it because she's talking about moving in power and getting rid of the things that, like, the beliefs and the systems that are holding us back. And
Mhm.
it's been mind blowing.
I love it. I'm going to have to add that to my list to check out. I have not listened to it, and I'm going to check it out. And again, congratulations on being a speaker in that. I'm so excited for you. I'm looking
Thank
forward to
you.
that. Okay, so last question that I always ask all of my guests, and that is, what are you doing for yourself? Like, that's something that I always love to ask all of my guests, right? Like, what are you doing for self-care for you? Because, as we become moms and wives and business owners, we often neglect ourselves. So what are you doing for you, Angela?
With my busy life, it can be really easy for me to, and especially ADHD object permanence, right? It can be easy for me to forget to connect with my friends. And I'll go weeks without having actually talked to one of my friends or something. And so we also, a lot of my friends are board game fanatics. And I myself am one of them. And so there's this website called boardgamearena.com where you can play all kinds of board games online with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so a bunch of my friends and I got memberships. And so we've been playing board games together online. And you can play when you have just like a few minutes. But something that we will do is we will get onto FaceTime and like play in real time against each other. And that has been so amazing it gives us a reason, right? Not that like I need a reason to connect with my friends, but as busy moms, sometimes you're like, I need the reason, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So
Yeah.
it gives us a reason to connect, to take an hour on FaceTime together, play some board games, have that time to be in each other's faces. So that has been amazing for me lately.
I love that. I love it because I get that because for me, going to the gym that's the time that I go and I see my friends, right? Like all of my friends are at the gym. And so that's my reason, right, to go to the gym is to see all of them. And so it's almost like it works hand in hand, the
Yes.
accountability, but also I get to hang out with them, and it's the most fun, and also gets my mind off of all of the business things and all of the kid things and all of the pressures and the stresses and all of the life situations. So where can everyone find you? Where are you hanging out?
My website is thechristiansexpert.com, and all of my socials are linked there.
Okay. Do you have a Facebook group or anything like that, or no?
I do not have a Facebook group, but I do have a private Patreon community. And I tell people that's where I teach all the spicy things I can't teach on regular socials. So things like positions, kinky stuff, role plays, toys, all of that stuff is available in my private Patreon community. And that's where I have the opportunity to kind of connect with people a little bit deeper than I can on regular socials without risking losing my account.
I love it. That is so amazing. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for taking the time and jumping on this call with me.
Thank you for inviting me. It was wonderful.
And there you have it. I want to encourage you to remember that being a mom who runs her own business is not easy. We all struggle, but just keep moving forward and don't forget to make time for yourself. As moms, we are usually the first thing to go to the bottom of the list. If your business is overwhelming you and you need real solutions, not just some sugar-coated suggestions, apply to work with me at ritasuzanne.com/apply.